Let's head to the commodity space now with the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Mr. Rewane, good morning and welcome to the program. Days after the rebase and a hold position from by the MPC, I wonder how the markets and reactions following those from what you have found out. I think you should unmute, Mr. Rewane. I cannot hear you.
Sorry, the market, there are two developments in the MPC meeting. One is that the market is happy that the Naira is appreciating. And two, the stock market was a bit disappointed that the interest rate was not brought down. So what we are seeing is that people rotating from selling, some of them are selling their stocks, profit taking on one hand, and using that to buy Forex on the other. So we are in the next 2 days, we're going to see some kind of stability. In other words, the Naira would depreciate marginally towards where the official rate is. And then as earnings begin to come out, the Q2 earnings begin to come out, we are going to be seeing some stocks actually appreciate. Some stocks have been oversold already. So we think that there's some asset bubble being created. But generally speaking, the market is quite delighted that nothing unexpected happened at the MPC. As a matter of fact, are quite excited about what has happened.
Is the fixed income market also happy?
No, the fixed income market expected when rates go down, then fixed income security prices go up. So those who were trying to who bought bonds at that time, hoping to sell when the interest rates come down, will have to wait until September 22nd. Nothing else is going to happen to change that.
And the Naira, even though the CBN governor had expressed fear, the impact of FARC, especially as FARC is going up, what it does, you know, as you have said, the demand on the dollar and all of that. Can we expect the Naira also to stay in this level of about 1,005, less than 1,006 until September?
I think that what the central bank governor was saying prior to that meeting was sending a very tacit signal to the fiscal authorities that, please, can you actually slow down the amount of cash injection into the system by way of FARC? And even if you're going to inject it in phases so that the economy doesn't get into a realm of overheating. I think that signal was there. And actually, since that time, we've seen the amount of tightening, the amount of securities being sold into the market higher, so that it's withdrawing liquidity from the system. So generally speaking, there's nothing to worry about. And FARC has only gone to 1.8 trillion naira from 1.6, and that can easily be absorbed by the system.
And we see on your slide, LNG plunged by 5.2%, driven by cooler temperature. How does this fit into the Nigerian economy and domestic markets?
Well, Brent futures rose to 60. Every time, like I said on the program on 10 o'clock news, it's only when the price of oil falls below $65 a barrel that we have so much to be worried about. What has happened is that our production has gone up from 1.3 to 1.5. So what we lose in terms of price, if there's a price decline, is made up by production. And production from the more lucrative land and swamp assets, where Nigeria as a JV partner actually gets more revenue for itself. So, and it's a paradox of oil price. The higher the oil price, the higher our revenue. The lower the oil price, the lower the petrol price, and lower inflation for the Dangote refinery that is selling and bringing down the price so that Nigeria begins to benefit from the lower oil price. So whichever way we look at it, Nigeria benefits both on the upside and the downside.
Talking about the oil and what Mr. Dangote said about how much Africa is spending importing refined petroleum products, I think about 90 billion is what it says annually. And then also the fact that Nigeria is now a net importer of U.S. crude. He had said at the event that just concluded in Abuja that he never thought that we would have to be importing crude into the country. Do you see a situation where perhaps Nigeria could fulfill all its obligation or major parts of its obligation, and then we stop this business of importing crude. Do you see it happening anytime soon?
I think it's going to happen, but don't forget that Nigeria, Lagos is just becoming a hub for refining. The other hubs, Singapore, Houston, and to a large extent Rotterdam, and sometimes in India. What we are seeing is that the infrastructure and what I call the institutional infrastructure for setting up a price system, pricing index for West African produced crude is coming up. That was the purpose of that seminar where we had S&P and Platts coming together with the Dangote Group, and it was very clearly defined that once the production is guaranteed, once its supply is guaranteed, then the price mechanism to actually determine that there's an efficient pricing system will emerge, and that is what is happening. So it's just a temporary evolution of a pricing and efficient pricing system for Nigeria.
So what happens to OPEC? I thought OPEC was there for the pricing of crude.
No, OPEC is a cartel, an oligopoly of oil producing countries, which determines one, price, two, output, and they have what they call the swing producers, mainly Saudi Arabia, now joined with what they call OPEC Plus with Russia. So that determines the benchmark price, or whatever you call it. But the index, the pricing mechanism, which has, you have different types, WTI, Brent, and Quarable. Now they're trying to determine, trying to develop an index which will give you an efficient price, so that when you say West African crude, this is the price of West African crude traded in the futures market for the next 60, 90 days, it is $70. The WTI, which is West Texas Intermediate is so low. Brent is so low. Bonnie Light so. So that's what they're trying to do.
All right, and Sir Rewane, what's going on with domestic commodities now? Any changes since the last time we spoke about it?
Yes, domestic commodity prices actually are now beginning to fall because people are anticipating the harvest season. For some strange reason, the August break came earlier than expected. So we are now beginning to see the harvest mechanism. And so people are saying, all right, fine. The naira is appreciating. The import substitutes are going to be cheaper. So now let me now begin to sell, or begin to put my commodities into the market. So we've seen the price of flour come down to 87,000. We've seen Gary down to 33,000. Price of rice actually is down to 87,000. And price of Gary is down to 33,000. That was the sharpest drop we saw. Pepper has dropped 11% to 80,000. And tomatoes is down now flat at 110,000. Onions is down. So basically those seasonally, those commodities that are seasonally sensitive, which respond to the harvest season, as well as the logistics costs, we are beginning to see those prices begin to fall. One, the price of petrol is down. Two, there's a massive increase in the quantity coming into the market because of harvest and anticipation of a bumper harvest for that matter. Because the use of fertilizer this year was much more than we had last year. So generally speaking, we think that this will drive the July inflation data down marginally, and that will be food for thought, or be a catalyst to enable the central bank MPC, when they meet in September, to take a more positive position in terms of bringing down interest rates, all things being equal.
Yeah, they say all other things being equal. But Mr. Rewane, this also brings to the fore another unfortunate reality, which is that because it's going to be harvest season, then we see the prices fall, and right after that we are back to an increase in price because of the lack of storage facilities, preservation, and the development of the value chain of these crops.
Yes, it is true that we need to ensure that we have storage. We have to have efficient transportation, and post-harvest losses are actually very high in Nigeria. But what is happening is that there's a diversification of the demand structure. You have industrial demand for, say, like maize and sorghum by the breweries by the Nestle's of the world who are using it for golden morn. You also have those who are using it to make ethanol as a substitute for alcohol. And we also have that for direct consumption. And we also have the people buying it for animal feed. So when you put all of this together, you see that there is that possibility that the demand is increasing, but it's diversified. Well, one thing I must let you know is that there was another element in the commodity value chain in Nigeria. People were growing commodities and exporting them to the neighboring countries to earn foreign exchange. But since the exchange rate started stabilizing, you've seen a reduction in the export smuggling, and therefore it has increased supply in the domestic market. And that is one of the reasons you're seeing the price of these commodities come down. Because the exchange rate has stabilized, the incentive to carry things across to Cameroon and Benin to sell, which reduces the amount the commodity supply in Nigeria, and therefore increased prices, has dropped. Therefore, because export smuggling has reduced, we are going to be seeing some commodity prices begin to fall, and that is good for the Nigerian market.
All right, Mr. Rewane, thank you so much.